Hello, everyone. This is Sean Mary. I was live on YouTube not that long ago, actually, only 10 days ago. I talked in that stream about different actors and actresses, talked about what I've seen them in. I went through different MCU films, looked at the cast of those movies. Thinking about this more, I realized, wow, I forgot about some big names. Like I watched that stream I did and realized, seriously, I didn't mention. Oh yeah, Chris Hemsworth. Thor. That's a very big deal when you're talking about Marvel because Thor is one of the six original Avengers. It's one of the core Avengers, and somehow I've no clue how this is possible. I just completely forgot to mention one of the OG Avengers. So Chris Hemsworth was Thor in four different standalone films, along with every Avengers movie. And then Thor was also in What If, and he wasn't in any of the other Disney Plus Marvel Studios shows. But also, Chris Hemsworth this year is actually going to be in both Furiosa Mad Max Saga as well as Transformers 1, two films that I'm very much looking forward to. Also, Chris Hemsworth was in Ghostbusters 2016. He played that really dumb guy who ends up getting taken over at the end of the movie. I've seen Ghostbusters 2016 before, along with Ghostbusters Afterlife and Frozen Empire. I actually saw Frozen Empire in theaters with two different friends of mine. That was a really nice experience because I hadn't seen any of the previous Ghostbuster movies in theaters. So it was really nice to see Frozen Empire on the big screen. I've also watched the original Ghostbusters. Haven't watched Ghostbusters 2 because I still really want to watch it. Look at it. It's like, okay, it's like a inferior version of the first movie. So it doesn't really interest me. Then aside from all those roles, I don't think I've seen Chris Hemsworth in anything else. Just look here. He was in Extraction 2. I haven't seen that movie before. I have seen John Wick, which is in the same ballpark as Extraction. Actually, Chris Hemsworth was in Star Trek 2009, which I have seen before. I've actually watched all the Star Trek movies at this point. Let's see here. What character did Chris Hemsworth play in that movie? I did not remember at all that Chris Hemsworth was in that movie. Let's see. Oh, George Kirk, the character that dies right at the beginning of the movie. And also, Chris Hemsworth was actually in Red Dawn 2012, which I've seen before. I watched that with a friend of mine back when I was a college student at Southwest Minnesota State University up in Marshall. Also, I've completely forgot in my previous stream to mention Jon Favreau. I don't know how I forgot about this. He was in the MCU from the start. He started playing Happy Hogan in that first Iron Man movie, and then he's been in all the standalone Iron Man films. And he was in Avengers Endgame, and I think Infinity War 2. And then aside from being actually Happy Hogan was in Spider-Man Homecoming and Far From Home. He's actually been in all of the standalone Spider-Man films in the MCU. That's right. Let's see what else has Jon Favreau done? He was in Daredevil 2003. I haven't specifically seen that movie, but I've watched the Netflix Daredevil show, and I'm a big fan of that one. Also, he was in Deep Impact, which came out back in 1998. That's a disaster movie that I've seen before. Um, and he actually was in The Wolf of Wall Street that came out back in 2013. I've seen that one before. Great movie, though tough watch. Not a film that I find particularly rewatchable. And let's see. Um, yeah, he's of course directed stuff for sure. But in regards to what movies he's actually appeared in, he hasn't really appeared in anything else. And then You also have Paul Bettany. I don't think I mentioned him last time either. Paul Bettany was actually in the MCU right from the beginning, as he started playing Jarvis in the first Iron Man movie. And then Jarvis was in all the standalone Iron Man films and the Avengers films, the first one, and then in Age of Ultron, Jarvis becomes Vision. Though Vision is something different from Jarvis. Actually, Vision was also in the Disney Plus show WandaVision as well. Then let's see, Paul Bettany has also been in Solo, a Star Wars story. That's the one, that and Rise of Skywalker, the two Star Wars films I haven't actually watched. And aside from that, I'm not familiar with anything else that Paul Bettany has been in. Also, you have Stanley Tucci. I completely forgot about this. He's in Captain America: The First Avenger, as he plays Dr. Abraham Erskine in that movie, the mentor to Steve, who believed in Steve when other military people didn't. Stanley Tucci is also in Transformers: The Last Knight. He plays that guy who works for the company KSI. I think the character's name is Joshua, if I remember right. Let's see, what else has Stanley Tucci done? He was in Road to Perdition that came out back in 2002, which is a crime drama film that's based on a graphic novel series. And then he has been in not anything else that I'm familiar with. Also, looking at Captain America: The First Avenger, actually, I talked about this movie in my last live stream, but I forgot that Dominic Cooper plays young Howard Stark in that movie, whereas John Slattery plays the older version of Howard Stark. Let's see here. What else has Dominic Cooper done? Um, Oh, he actually played a character called Sky in both Mamma Mia 2008 and the sequel Mamma Mia Here We Go Again. And I'm not familiar with other things that he's done. Also, when it comes to Ben Kingsley, I talked about this actor during my last stream, but when I talked about him then, I completely forgot that Ben Kingsley was in the movie Ender's Game that came out back in 2013, which I actually just rewatched this past weekend. Really enjoyed it. And then Ben Kingsley has also been in Schindler's List, actually, directed by Steven Spielberg. He played a character called Itzhak Stern. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that first name right. It's spelled Itzhak. And then I'm also Ben Kingsley is in Shutter Island along with being a character Trevor Slattery in the MCU. And also Kingsley did voice work for the Jungle Book 2016, played Bagheera. I mentioned this during my last stream. And also, when it comes to Guy Pearce, I mentioned during my last stream that he played Aldrich Killian in Iron Man 3 and also was in Prometheus and Alien Covenant as Wayland. And also, actually, Guy Pearce was in Christopher Nolan's Memento that came out back in 2000. I haven't watched that movie specifically, but I definitely know Christopher Nolan. I think he's one of the best directors working in Hollywood right now. And then I'm not familiar with anything else that Guy Pearce has done. Also, when it comes to For the Dark World, you have the actor who plays that guy who's the assistant to an assistant. You have Kat Dennings' character Darcy who appears in For the Dark World. She has her own intern in that movie. I completely forgot about this character, which isn't really surprising because For the Dark World is not a terrible movie. It's not incompetent. It's just so bland, generic, forgettable that it's hard to really remember much about that movie. Let's see. Who played that character? I don't even remember the character's name actually. But speaking of the four movies, last time I completely forgot to mention Idris Elba. He played Heimdall in the first two. The first, yeah, he played Heimdall in the first four movies, and then he wasn't in Thor: Love and Thunder because Heimdall died at the beginning of Avengers: Infinity War. Also, Idris Elba played Knuckles in Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and then the TV show Knuckles, which, wow, I don't know what the heck the filmmakers were thinking there. Hey, we're going to name our show Knuckles, but then we're going to, for some reason, sideline Knuckles and focus on Wade. That's a bafflingly bad decision. Come on, guys. We go to a Knuckles show, to see Knuckles. We don't want to see Wade. Also, Idris Elba was Shere Khan in the live action Jungle Book movie. And then what else has he done? Let's see here. He actually played Bloodsport in the Suicide Squad from James Gunn. It's in the DCEU. Then he has also actually done voice work for Zootopia, Finding Dory. Oh yeah, I remember now. Finding Dory in Zootopia. Idris Elba plays the police chief in that movie. Then I don't remember what character he played in Finding Dory. I have to look that one up. Um, let's see. Oh, so Idris Elba voiced Fluke, one of the sea lions in Finding Dory. I'm not familiar with other. Oh, actually, Idris Elba was in Prometheus. I completely forgot about that. Let's see. What character did he play there? Um, oh, he played Janek, the captain of the ship in Prometheus. And then I'm not familiar with any of the other things that Idris Elba has done. Also, when it comes to Guardians of the Galaxy, actually, going back to For the Dark World, last time I was talking about this, I completely forgot that Benicio del Toro started playing the Collector in For the Dark World. His character just appeared in the post-credit scene of that movie, and then the Collector was in Guardians of the Galaxy, and then he was in Avengers Infinity War. Benicio del Toro has also been in Star Wars, actually, because he played that Codebreaker DJ in The Last Jedi. Aside from these two roles, I'm not sure what else Benicio del Toro has done. Let's see here. Okay. Yeah, I'm not familiar with other things that Benicio del Toro has done. When we look at Guardians of the Galaxy, you have Glenn Close, who plays that that Novacore lady, Irana Rael. I think that's her name. I don't know if I'm saying that exactly right. I forgot Glenn Close has more of a minor role in Guardians of the Galaxy. Her character doesn't really have as much screen time. Let's see, what else has she done? Um, oh, okay. She played Cruella DeVille in 101 Dalmatians from 1996. So then the sequel that came out in 2000. And then voiced Kala in the 1999 version of Tarzan, animated movie from Disney. And then there's the movie Hoodwinked that came out in 2005. That one had Glenn Close in it, although I'm not familiar with that movie. Also, she actually was in the 2021 movie Cruella. Glenn Close, I think she played Cruella in there. Oh, actually, no. It was Emma Stone who played Estella Cruella in the movie Cruella. So, what character did Glenn Close play? Um, I'm not sure. It seems like she had more of a minor role there. Also, you have John C. Riley, who plays Corman Day in Guardians of the Galaxy. Let's see. What else has this guy done? Um, Oh, okay. He actually is the voice of Ralph in both Wreck-It Ralph as well as Ralph Breaks the Internet. And then he's been in other things that I'm not familiar with. Also, in Guardians of the Galaxy, there's the actor that plays Korath, but I don't remember what the name of that actor is. Let's see here. Um, it's Digimon Honsu. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. He was in. Um, oh, he is actually the Fisherman King in Aquaman, and then he played the Wizard Shazam in Shazam, Black Adam, and Shazam: Fury of the Gods. And also, he was in Stargate that came out back in 1994. Not a movie that I've seen. It's directed by Roland Emmerich, though, who also did Independence Day, which I have seen before. Then he was in Gladiator in 2000. I've seen that movie. And then he was in How to Train Your Dragon 2. What character did he play in that movie? I'm going to look this up here. Digimon Honsu plays Drago Bloodfist in that movie. He's an acceptable villain for the second movie. He does his job, but is pretty one dimensional, to be honest. There's only one scene giving you anything about the character's motivations. Also, this actor is in The Legend of Tarzan that came out back in 2016. I watched that movie for the first time with my mom. I really enjoyed it. Also, more recently, this actor has been in Gran Turismo that came out last year, directed by Neil Blomkamp, and both Rebel Moon movies. Rebel Moon Part 1, A Child of Fire, and Part 2, The Scargiver. I haven't seen either of those two films. Based on what I've heard about them from videos, I'm not interested in watching them because it just feels to me like they're an inferior copy of Star Wars, a bar band cover version of Star Wars. It's like, no, I don't want to watch this. It's not worth my time. Then, is there any other actors that I want to talk about from Guardians of the Galaxy? No, there's not. So then, when I look at Avengers Age of Ultron, you have Claudia Kim plays Dr. Helen Cho in that movie. Let's see, what else has this actress done? Um, she actually was in Fantastic Beasts: Crimes of Grindelwald. That's the middle film in the Fantastic Beasts trilogy. So one out of them I haven't seen because it doesn't look very good. I haven't heard good things about it at all, so it doesn't interest me. And then you have the actress that plays Laura Barton in Avengers: Age of Ultron. Um, I don't remember off the top of my head the name of this actress. Um, let's see here. What is a name? Um, uh, Linda. Okay, Linda Cardelli. That's the name. Let's see here. What else has Linda Cardelli done? Um, oh, she actually played Velma Dinkley in the 2002 Scooby Doo movie and the sequel Monsters Unleashed. And then she was in Green Book that came out back in 2018, which I actually saw in theaters with my dad. We both really enjoyed it. And then Laura Barton first was in Age of Ultron, but then was in Avengers Endgame and Hawkeye. They actually, this actress also did motion capture for Lila in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I did not remember that. So it's pretty interesting that actually Laura Barton, no, I mean, Linda Cardellini has actually done two different roles for the MCU. Huh. I don't know anyone else that can has that distinction. Also, you have Thomas Kretschmann. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that last name right. It's a long one. This is the actor that plays Baron von Strucker in Avengers Age of Ultron. First appeared actually in the post-credits scene of Captain America the Winter Soldier, and then was in Avengers Age of Ultron. Let's see here. He actually played Captain Englehorn in the 2005 King Kong movie, and then did play Professor Z in Cars 2, and also is in nothing else that I'm familiar with. Also, we got looking at Ant-Man, you have David Dastmalchian. This is the actor that plays one of Scott Lang's friends, starting in Ant-Man and then in Ant-Man and the Wasp. Plays Kurt and Veb in the Ant-Man franchise. Then he actually played Thomas Schiff in The Dark Knight 2008. Thomas Schiff, who's that again? I think it's the character that Bruce Wayne runs into right before the shooting at that big parade happens. Also, actually, David Dastmalchian was Polka Dot Man in Suicide Squad 2021, as well as being Abracadabra in CW's The Flash. And then he also actually was in Blade Runner 2049 and Dune 2021. And then he played William Borden in Oppenheimer. I don't remember who that character is. They also have Abby Ryder Forston. This is the actress that plays Scott Lang's daughter Cassie in the first Ant-Man movie. Actually, in Ant-Man and the Wasp as well. This actress was also Margaret Simon in Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, that came out in 2023. I've watched that movie, and I thought this does a better job at doing what Turning Red tried to do. I think this is how you do it right. Turning Red is how you do it wrong. Also, she's been in other things that I'm not familiar with. Then you have Bobby, actually, Michelle Pfeiffer plays Janet Van Dyne in the MCU, starring in Ant-Man and the Wasp, but then is a bigger role in Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. This actress is also Catwoman in Tim Burton's Batman Returns, and also is in The Prince of Egypt, where she played Miriam, I think. Let's see here. Is there anything else I've seen Michelle Pfeiffer in? No, I haven't seen her in anything else. I'm looking at the Wikipedia page for Michelle Pfeiffer. I thought it would say in there that she was in Prince of Egypt, but I'm not seeing. Yeah, Michelle Pfeiffer is in Prince of Egypt. I just checked. She's Zipporah. I don't know why it doesn't say that in the Wikipedia page for Michelle Pfeiffer. It seems a bit odd. But you also have Bobby Cannavale. This is the actor that plays Paxton in the first two Ant-Man movies. I enjoyed that character because of the growth he had. I wish some of these characters had shown up in Ant-Man the Wasp Quantumania, which I was really disappointed by. And Bobby Cannavale has also been in Paul Blart Mall Cop that came out back in 2009, which I've seen before, and I'm a big fan of it. I think it's really funny. And then he was also in Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle back in 2017. And yeah, he hasn't been in anything else I'm familiar with. You also have T.I. Yeah, that's the name of a person. I'm not kidding. This is actually a rapper. That's why it's just T.I. This is the actor that plays another one of Scott Lang's friends in the first two Ant-Man movies. Let's see. What else has this guy done? Um, Yeah, nothing else that I'm familiar with. And then You have here Judy Greer, who plays Maggie in the first two Ant-Man movies. That's Scott Lang's ex-wife. Paxton is the new guy that Maggie marries. At first, Paxton and Scott really don't like each other, but that changes as time goes on. Let's see here. Judy Greer is actually in both Dawn and War of the Planet of the Apes. She plays Cornelia, that's I think the name of the character, Caesar's wife in those movies. This is one of the apes that doesn't communicate via speech, but communicates via sign language. So that's a big part of the reason why I didn't remember that she's in these new Planet of the Apes movies. Cornelia is indeed the name of the character. Also, actually, Judy Greer was in Jurassic World 2015, and actually, hmm, Judy Greer is also in Guardians Volume 3. I did not remember she's in that movie. Interesting. And I'm not familiar with the other things that she's done. And let's see, is there any other characters from MCU films I've already talked about that I hadn't covered? No, it doesn't look like it. Well, actually, from Thor Ragnarok, I somehow completely forgot to mention Jeff Goldblum. I don't know why. He's a actor that really stands out because of all the stuttering he does. Jeff Goldblum is also, aside from being Grandmaster in Thor Ragnarok, is Dr. Ian Malcolm in Jurassic Park and is in Independence Day as well, both films. Aside from that, I'm not sure what else Jeff Goldblum has done. Let's see here. He was in. Yeah, I'm not familiar with other things that he's done. But then from Thor Ragnarok, are there any other characters? Oh, yeah, Tessa Thompson. This is the actress that started playing Valkyrie in Thor Ragnarok, then returned for Thor Love and Thunder, as well as, I think, What if I'm remembering right. Let's see here. What else has Tessa Thompson done? She's actually been in all three Creed movies and had a leading role in Men in Black International, came out back in 2019. And then I'm not I haven't seen any of the other things that she's done, though I will say she was in the movie Annihilation that came out back in 2018. It was done by the same director that just did Civil War not very long ago, which I really enjoyed. With that out of the way, we will move. Actually, now let's talk about Black Panther. So, first of all, I completely forgot last time to mention that Forrest Whitaker is actually in both Marvel and Star Wars because he played the character in Black Panther, the one who ends up being killed by Killmonger. This guy is actually also in Arrival 2016, directed by Denis Villeneuve. And then he was Zuri in Black Panther, and was also Saw Gerrera in Rogue One, a Star Wars story. And then aside from that, I'm not familiar with the other things that he's done. Also, when we look at Black Panther, there's the actor that plays the character of Wakabi, who at first is on Black Panther's side, but then sides with Killmonger for a time, though he ultimately ends up doing the right thing. Let's see. Daniel Kaluuya is the actor that played Wakabi in the Black Panther films. What else has this guy done? Um, actually, he was in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I did not remember he was in that movie. Let's see. What character did he play there? Um, He played Hobie Brown's Spider-Punk in Across the Spider-Verse. That out of the way, we can move on now. So let's talk about Avengers Infinity War. The number one actor that you have to discuss here is Josh Brolin, who played Thanos in Infinity War. Now, the character cameoed in a few previous MCU films like The Avengers and Guardians of the Galaxy, but he only had 2 minutes of screen time, so I thought, let's not talk about Josh Brolin until I get to Infinity War. I remember when I watched Goonies for the first time, it was very interesting for me. And oh, Josh Brolin, Thanos, is in the Goonies. Also, I think this guy was in Prince of Egypt as well. Um, let's see here. Josh Brolin actually was Cable in Deadpool 2. I did not remember that at all. Then he was in True Grit 2010, Wall Street Money Never Sleeps. That's actually a sequel to a movie that came out in 1987 called Wall Street, which I've seen before and really enjoy. Then Josh Brolin was actually in the third Men in Black movie. It came out back in 2012. And then he was in actually both Dune movies. What character did he play in those movies? I didn't remember he was in them at all. So Josh Brolin played Gurney Halleck in both Dune movies. And then I think he was in Prince of Egypt, except I'm looking at the Wikipedia page for him right here, specifically Josh Brolin filmography. I'm not seeing that movie here. Let's see. Hmm. I think I might have been wrong. Maybe he wasn't actually in Prince of Egypt. Uh, yeah, it doesn't look like he was actually. Okay, so I didn't exactly remember right. Though it turns out Jeff Goldblum is actually in Prince of Egypt. Did I mention that before? I don't think I did, to be honest. Aside from Thanos, really the only other new characters at this point are the members of the Black Order that we see in Infinity War, ones that are on Thanos' side. First of all, you have that guy who gets thrown out into space, who's called Squidward by Tony Stark, who gives all these speeches. What's that character's name? He's the one that actually talks the most. The other members of the Black Order don't really have as many lines of dialogue. Let's see here. Um, Actually, first of all, mention this. Carrie Coon plays Proxima Midnight in Avengers Infinity War and Endgame 2, actually. Let's see, what else has this actress done? She's in actually both Ghostbusters Afterlife and Frozen Empire. Huh, what character did she play there? I'm curious about this one. She plays Callie Spangler in both of these Ghostbusters movies. I'm not familiar with other things that she's done. But then, actually, here's something I did not remember. Peter Dinklage actually is in Avengers Infinity War. He plays Eitri in that movie. Also, this actor was on Game of Thrones as Tyrion Lannister, son of Tywin Lannister. And also, Peter Dinklage is in the Fox X-Men movies, specifically in Days of Future Past. He played Bolivar Trask in that movie. I think there was a different actor that played Trask back in X-Men Free the Last Stand. His character had a more minor role in that movie, admittedly, whereas he had more screen time in Days of Future Past. Let's see, Peter Dinklage is also in Elf that came out back in 2003. That's a very rewatchable film, I'd say. It's so funny. It's such a heartwarming, sentimental, wholesome, feel good movie that I could easily just throw on that has no cynicism or jadedness at all. Also, Peter Dinklage is in Chronicles of Narnia Prince Caspian. Okay, I did not remember that at all. He actually also voiced Scourge in Transformers Rise of the Beast. Okay, I'm not familiar with other things this guy's done. And then, let's see, who else is in Infinity War. Um, he had Michael James Shaw played Corvus Glaive in Avengers Infinity War and Endgame. And um, I don't think I've seen him in anything else. I have not. And then we just have left the actor that played that one member of the Black Order who gave speeches multiple times. Tom Von Lawler played Ebony Maw in both Infinity War and Endgame. What else has this guy done? Um, let's see. He was in nothing else that I'm familiar with. So that will cover it for characters that are introduced in Endgame. Though actually, now that I'm thinking about it, wait a minute. I haven't actually gotten to Guardians. Well, yeah, I actually have gone past Guardians Volume 2. So let's talk about Palm Clementif. This is the actress that started playing Mantis in Guardians Volume 2, and then she's in Guardians Volume 3, as well as Infinity War Endgame. Let's see. She's also played Paris, actually, in Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. Aside from that, I haven't. She's also actually in the Addams Family 2019. I haven't seen that film specifically, but I definitely know that franchise. She's also actually has an uncredited cameo in Suicide Squad 2021. It's- I'm not familiar with the other things that she's been in. Also, looking at Guardians Volume 2, actually, you have the actor that was Taserface in that movie. Chris Sullivan is the name. Let's see, what else has this guy done? Um, he was actually in Megamind versus the Doom Syndicate that came out this year. He played Behemoth in that movie. And he also was in Merry Little Batman that came out last year. He played Bane. That was an Amazon Prime original. Aside from that, I'm not familiar with other things that he's done. And then you have the actor that played Adam Warlock, actually, who showed up really in Guardians Volume 3, though there's the post-credit scene of Guardians Volume 2. I don't remember who exactly played that character. Let's see here. Adam Warlock's played by Will Poulter. What else has he done? Um, He's actually Eustace Scrubb in Chronicles of Narnia: Voyage of the Dawn Treader. And then he's actually in The Revenant from 2015. And also, I'm not familiar with the other things that he's done. Looking at Guardians Volume 2, there's at this point not any other new characters that I haven't talked about yet. And then let's move on to Ant-Man and the Wasp that came out right after Infinity War. It was very different from Infinity War because it's a much more light-hearted, simple, straightforward MacGuffin story, and intentionally is pretty low stakes, and it's a lot of fun to watch. Let's see, in Ant-Man and the Wasp, first of all, actually, Lawrence Fishburne enters into the MCU. This guy is a pretty big name, considering that he's in the Matrix franchise where he's Morpheus, and also Lawrence Fishburne's actually in the DCEU because he started playing Perry White in Man of Steel, then Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. Aside from these roles, let's see what else has Lawrence Fishburne done. Oh, actually, he was the Bowery King in the John Wick movies, and also he's in Contagion that came out back in 2011. And I'm not familiar with other things that he's done, but actually, when it comes to Kurt Russell, who's an actor that I've talked about before, but I think he was in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, though I'm not exactly sure. So let's move on. When you look at Ant Man and the Wasp, you also have the actress that started playing Ava Starr in Ant Man and the Wasp. That character actually hasn't appeared in any other MCU films yet. That actress is Hannah John Kamen. Let's see, what else has she done? Um, doesn't look. Oh, actually, she technically was in Star Wars: The Force Awakens, but just as a background officer. It's a pretty small role. And then she was also in Ready Player One. She played F. Nail Zandor. I don't remember that character. I'm not familiar with her from anything else. Let's see. I also have the actor that played Sonny Birch, Walton Goggins. Let's see, what else has he done? Walton Goggins is actually in a TV show called Invincible. That's an Amazon Prime original. It's in the same ballpark as The Boys and Gen 5. It's animated, but it's still an adult, dark comic book show. And also, actually, Walton Goggins is in Fallout, which came out on Amazon Prime not very long ago. Let's see. He also was in Lincoln, Predators, and I'm not familiar with him from anything else. Then you have Randall Park, who actually started playing Agent Jimmy Woo in Ant Man and the Wasp, and then he returned for WandaVision. Let's see, what else has Randall Park done? Um, oh, actually, he's Dr. Stephen Shin in both Aquaman and Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. I don't remember that character. Let's see, from Ant Man and the Wasp, we also have um, not really any other major new faces. So let's move on to Captain Marvel. First of all, Brie Larson started playing Carol Danvers' Captain Marvel in Captain Marvel, which came out back in 2019. Brie Larson was also in Kong Skull Island. Aside from that, I'm not sure what else she's done. I actually just rewatched Kong Skull Island recently. I was like, oh, Brie Larson, Captain Marvel, is in this movie. She's also in 21 Jump Street that came out back in 2012. That's a really funny movie. And aside from that, I'm not familiar with anything else that she's done. Also, this is where Ben Mendelsohn enters into the MCU because he started playing one of the Skrulls, Talos, in Captain Marvel. And then he was in Secret Invasion. Ben Mendelsohn is in Star Wars as well because he played director Orson Krennic in Rogue One: A Star Wars Story. And Ben Mendelsohn has done a role for DC as well because he was in The Dark Knight Rises as Daggett. Aside from these free roles, I'm not sure what else Ben Mendelsohn has done. Oh, he's in Ready Player One. He plays the main bad guy in that movie. Let's see, what else has he done? He actually was in Robin Hood 2018. He played the Sheriff of Nottingham. I'm not familiar with anything else that he's done. Then you have the actor that plays the character who at first seems like a mentor to Captain Marvel, but then we find out that's not the case. Let's see, what's that character's name? Jude Law. He plays Jan Rog in Captain Marvel. Jude Law is also in a movie called Gattaca that I'm a big fan of. It's a sci-fi movie that came out back in 1997 about genetics. Also, Jude Law is in the Wizarding World franchise as well because he started playing Dumbledore in Fantastic Beasts: Crimes of Grindelwald, and he was in Secrets of Dumbledore as well. Aside from that, I'm not sure what else Jude Law has done. He actually was in The Talented Mr. Ripley back in 1999, and then he is in Road to Perdition back in 2002, AI Artificial Intelligence back in 2001, and then played actually Dr. Watson in both Sherlock Holmes 2009 and the sequel Game of Shadows. Also, he was in Contagion, and I'm not familiar with the other things that he's done. Then you have Gemma Chan plays Dr. Minerva in Captain Marvel. This actress is also actually in Eternals. So that's pretty funny. She's actually done two different roles in the MCU. She played Cersei in Eternals that came out during Phase 4. Also, she was actually in The Creator, came out last year, directed by Gareth Edwards. And she was in Raya and the Last Dragon from Disney Animation, that came out in 2021. And then I'm not familiar with the other things she's done. Also, you have Lashana Lynch, who played Marie Rambeau in the MCU, starting in Captain Marvel, then Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness and the Marvels. Also, Lashana Lynch has actually been in the James Bond film No Time to Die that came out back in 2021. And I'm not familiar with anything else that she's done. Also, let's see, you have Annette Bening, who plays the Supreme Intelligence in Captain Marvel. What else has she done? Um, hmm, yeah, I'm not familiar with other things that she's done. So now, is there anyone else from Captain Marvel that I want to talk about? No, I don't think there is. So let's move on to Avengers Endgame. Now, there's not actually very many new characters because almost all the characters we see in Endgame were already in a previous MCU film. So, is there any new characters to talk about here? No, there actually is not. Though there's one guy that I don't think I've actually mentioned so far, but we got to talk about him. This is really, really big. Mark Ruffalo. He's one of the 6 OG original Avengers. He started playing Hulk in The Avengers, and then he's in Avengers Age of Ultron, Infinity War, Endgame, Thor Ragnarok, She-Hulk. Mark Ruffalo was also in Shutter Island, and let's see. He was in Poor Things that came out at the end of 2023, which is like a new version of Frankenstein. Because I know the story of Frankenstein, there's some connection to that movie, but I haven't specifically seen Poor Things. I'm not familiar with anything else Mark Ruffalo's done. All right, now we're going to start talking about Phase 4. Well, let's start with Black Widow. So you have David Harbour started playing the Red Guardian in Black Widow. This guy was also actually in the Netflix show Stranger Things. He played Sheriff Jim Hopper in that show. And then Harbour was also in Gran Turismo that came out last year. Aside from that, I don't know what else he's done. But something that I think is interesting actually is Rachel Weisz started playing Melina in Black Widow. Rachel Weisz is also in The Mummy and The Mummy Returns as Evelyn. And then Florence Pugh, who started playing Yelena in Black Widow. She was actually in Oppenheimer that came out last year. So first of all, let's see, is Florence Pugh done anything else that I'm familiar with? She actually voiced Goldilocks in Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. And then she played Princess Irulan in Dune Part 2. Aside from that, I'm not familiar with other things she's done. When it comes to David Harbour, Let's see. What else? He was actually in Suicide Squad 2016. I have not seen that version of Suicide Squad. And then he was the title character in Hellboy 2019, which isn't a movie that I've seen before, but I've watched Hellboy and Hellboy 2 The Golden Army, so the 2019 film is definitely on my radar. And then I'm not, doesn't look like I'm familiar with anything else he's done. No, I'm not. So then when I look at Rachel Weisz, aside from being in those two Mummy films and being Melina, what else has she done? Um, she's actually in Oz the Great and Powerful, which I've seen before. That's part of the Wizard of Oz franchise. And I'm not familiar with anything else she's done. And then you have Ray Winston, who played the villain in Black Widow. Um, he also was in Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, King Arthur 2004, and I'm not familiar with a. I haven't seen any of the other movies that he's been in, but there's this movie that came out back in 2012 called Snow White and the Huntsman that's based on the German fairy tale Snow White. There's the Disney classic Snow White and Seven Dwarfs, which I haven't seen, but I've watched a lot of Disney animated films, so there's some kind of connection to Snow White and the Huntsman. Actually, he was also in The Departed that came out back in 2006 from Martin Scorsese. I'm not familiar with any of the other things Ray Winston has done. And then you have Ever and Anderson, who played young Natasha Romanoff in Black Widow, and actually was Wendy Darling in the 2023 film Peter Pan and Wendy that came out straight to Disney Plus. Not familiar with anything else she's done. And then you have Violet McGraw, who was in Megan that came out back in 2022. And what else has she done? Oh, her first feature film was actually Ready Player One. And aside from that, she was young. She was young Yelena in Black Widow, but I'm not familiar with anything else she's done. And then you have Olga Kurilenko technically plays Taskmaster in Black Widow, but man, she's not didn't have much to work with there at all. That is for sure. She was actually in Quantum of Solace back in 2008, one of the James Bond films. And then I'm not familiar with anything else she's done. There's not really anyone else I'd like to mention from Black Widow. So let's move on to Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. First of all, you have Aquafina, who plays Sean Lee's friend Katie in this movie. Aquafina was actually in Kung Fu Panda 4 earlier on this year. And then she actually was in Raya and the Last Dragon, too, I'm pretty sure. Let's see. She was in Jumanji: The Next Level back in 2019, and um, she's actually in the Angry Birds movie 2, 2019, Raya and the Last Dragon, The Bad Guys that came out in 2022. I actually ended up seeing that movie twice in theaters. Both times I drove from Montevideo to Marshall on my own to see that movie. And then she's in The Little Mermaid, specifically the live action remake. And then she was in Migration that came out right at the end of 2023. I saw that one in theaters with two different friends of mine. It's from Illumination. I'm not familiar with anything else Aquafina has done. And then you have Simu Liu, who played Shang-Chi in Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. He played A Ken in Barbie, and I'm not familiar with. He was actually in Arthur the King as Leo, not a movie that I've seen. Oh, that's one of those dog movies. Yeah, I remember seeing ads for that one. So this guy and his dog who do this big race. And I'm not familiar with anything else that he's done. And then you have Tony Leung Chiu Wai, who plays Wen Wu the Mandarin in Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. See what else has he done. Um, uh, Not familiar with any of the other things he's been in. And then you have Michelle Yeoh plays Yin Nan in Shang-Chi. Oh, yeah, this is the actress that was in Everything Everywhere All at Once. That was a fantastic movie that used the multiverse in a really creative way, in very much a different way than Spider Man No Way Home or the Spider Verse films, for example. Also, actually, she was in Kung Fu Panda 2, as well as The Mummy, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, the third Mummy film. Also, she was in Star Trek Discovery in season 1. Actually, beyond season 1, too, because the character that she played in that show we saw in two different ways. There's one version of this character we saw right at the beginning of Star Trek Discovery, and then that version of the character dies, and we see a multiverse variant of that person. She actually played Evelyn Wayne in Everything Everywhere All at Once, and I'm not familiar with other things that she's done. Then you have st- um, it's not there's not any other major characters I like to talk about from Shang-Chi. Now let's talk about Eternals. So I've already mentioned the actress that played Cersei in Eternals. We also have Barry Keoghan, who played Druig in Eternals. Let's see what else he's done. He was actually in Dunkirk from Christopher Nolan, which I saw in theaters. I enjoyed it. And then he was in The Green Knight from 2021, that's based on medieval mythology. And then he has been in other things that I'm not familiar with. Also, we have Kit Harrington, played Black Knight Dane Whitman in Eternals. Let's see what else Kit Harrington's done. Oh, he's actually most well known for being Jon Snow in Game of Thrones. And then he's been in actually How to Train Your Dragon 2 and 3. Huh, I did not remember he's in those films. What character did he play in How to Train Your Dragon 2? Oh, he played Eret, son of Eret, in that movie. Then How to Train Your Dragon 3 is a movie I've seen once before. I'm not a big fan of it. I thought it was a disappointing end of that trilogy. And then we have Richard Madden, who played one of the. He actually played Robb Stark in Game of Thrones, and then he's in Cinderella 2015 as Prince Kit. I think that movie is one of the best Disney live action remakes and actually improves on the film that it's remaking, unlike other Disney live action remakes, especially The Lion King. He played Icarus in Eternals. Aside from that, I'm not familiar with other things that he's done. And then you have Angelina Jolie played Thena in Eternals. Actually, I remember this is the actress who was Maleficent in both the first Maleficent movie and Maleficent Mistress of Evil. What else has Angelina Jolie done? Um, She actually has had a voice role in the Kung Fu Panda series. I don't remember what. Oh, didn't Angelina Jolie play Tigress in the Kung Fu Panda films? Yeah, I think that's the case. Let's look this up here. Voice cast. Yeah, I was right. Angelina Jolie has played Tigress in the first three Kung Fu Panda movies. Unfortunately, the Furious Five were excluded from Kung Fu Panda 4. I think that was a mistake. Those characters should have been included. And Actually, Tigress also showed up in Kung Fu Panda Legends of Awesomeness, but none of the other two Kung Fu Panda series. Aside from these examples, I'm not familiar with other things that Angelina Jolie has done. And then you had um, Harry Styles, who played Eros in Eternals just during the post-credit scene. So pretty minor role. Let's see, what else has he done? He's actually in Dunkirk that came out back in 2017. But he hasn't really been in many movies, mostly because he's more known as a singer rather than an actor. And then see, we have Salma Hayek, who played Ajak in Eternals, and whew, man, Salma Hayek's talents were wasted in that movie because that character Ajax is basically killed before we even get to know her, and so we only get to know her at all through flashbacks. Unfortunately, what else has she done? Oh, she was actually in Puss in Boots 2011 and House of Gucci that came out in 2021. I ended up seeing that film in theaters. I really enjoyed it. I'm not familiar with other things Selma Hayek has done. Then we have Ma Don Siuk, who played Gilgamesh in Eternals. Let's see here, filmography. Um, yeah, I was right. He's Gilgamesh in Eternals. What else has he done? Um, I'm not familiar with any other things he's done. And then you have Kumail Nanjiani, one of these actors that's actually been in both Star Wars and Marvel, because he played one of the Eternals, specifically the Bollywood Eternal. What's that guy's name? Let's see here. Kingo is the character's name in Eternals. Also, Kumail Nanjiani was in the Disney Plus series Kenobi. He plays a character that's pretending to be a Jedi. At first, it seems like he's just a con artist manipulating people, but then you see, oh, there's actually a good side to him. Like, he's not a mean spirited con artist. He actually is trying to do something good. He's not just conning people to be selfish. Also, Kumail Nanjiani was in Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. And what else has he done? Um, I'm not familiar with. Well, he's also in The Boys. Not a show that I've seen, but I've watched Invincible, so Boys is definitely on my radar. And then you also have Bill Skarsgård. Ooh, Crow? Who's that character in Eternals? I'm trying to remember. It's not ringing any bells. So I'm going to move on, actually. You have Leah McHugh, who played Sprite in Eternals. Let's see, what else has this actress done? Yeah, she hasn't been in a lot of movies so far, hasn't been in anything else that I'm familiar with. But then you have Brian Tyree Henry, who played she was also in Joker 2019, Godzilla v Kong 2021. Then he was Fastos in Eternals. And actually, he's been in Godzilla vs. Kong as well as Godzilla v Kong The New Empire. And then you have Lauren Ridloff, who plays one of the Eternals. Um, she is that deaf Eternal in the movie, but I'm trying to remember what her name is. Let's see here. Makari, that's the name of the characters. Lauren Ridloff plays Makari in Eternals. I don't know what else he's done. And then Marshala Ali has only one line of dialogue in Eternals. Technically, he plays Blade in that movie, but it's such a small role. But actually, Marshala Ali is also in the Marvel television show Luke Cage. he played Cottonmouth in that show. Then he was also in Green Book. And then you have, let's see, I don't think, mm, yeah, there's no one else I'd like to mention here. So let's move on. Talk about Doctor Strange into the Multiverse of Madness, which I was really disappointed by because I felt like it had the potential to be so much better than it is. Instead, they played it really safe with the movie when there's no need to. You have Xochitl Gomez. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that first name right. She played America Chavez in Doctor Strange 2. What else has she done? Well, actually, I remember seeing her on Dancing with the Stars, but if we're looking at movies and TV shows, I'm not familiar with her from anything else. And then you have technically John Krasinski plays Reed Richards, but he has such a small role in that movie. It's so baffling that in Doctor Strange 2, they literally say Mr. Fantastic is the smartest person on Earth. And then they make him look like an absolute moron, or he, for some reason, thinks, you know, I have a great idea. How about I tell my enemy exactly what my ally here is going to do to her? 'Cause that's totally not going to backfire in any way. How would I just tell Wanda what Black Bolt's about to do? Because that's going to turn out very well. There's no chance whatsoever she would use her powers to stop that from happening. Such a bafflingly stupid thing to do. What else has John Krasinski been in? He was Jim Halpert on The Office. And aside from that, I'm not familiar. Well, actually, he was in Monsters University back in 2013. Other than that, I'm not familiar with him. And then you have not any other major new characters. Well, actually, I'll say this now, even though the character has almost zero screen time, sadly. Technically, Patrick Stewart's in this movie as Charles Xavier, but it's easy for me to even forget that Patrick Stewart is in Doctor Strange 2 at all. He has so little screen time. It's so disappointing to me that's like, oh, this is awesome. We're in a different universe and we're going to see the Illuminati. Yes! And then it means pretty much nothing because Charles Xavier is killed for the third time. We saw the character die twice in the Fox X-Men films, and then Doctor Strange 2, it's like, hey, here's an idea. How about we show you his death again? Because you would love that, wouldn't you? No, it's not what I wanted to see. Patrick Stewart, other than being Charles Xavier in Fox X-Men movies, that cameo in the MCU, he also is really well known for being Jean-Luc Picard in Star Trek The Next Generation, Star Trek Picard, and some of the films. And then there's the Christmas Carol movie from 1999 that has Patrick Stewart in it. Aside from that, I'm not. Oh, actually, Patrick Stewart is in The Prince of Egypt that came out in 1998. Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius, Chicken Little 2005, Romeo and Juliet 2011, and Ted. I've watched Ted before. I'm not a fan of that movie because it's just too cynical, jaded, and mean spirited for me. And I've seen Chicken Little. I haven't specifically watched Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius, but I've seen Meet the Robertsons, which is in the same ballpark as this movie. And then I'm a big fan of Prince of Egypt. Haven't seen Romeo and Juliet, but I know the story of Romeo and Juliet. Aside from that, is there anyone else from Doctor Strange 2 I'd like to talk about? No, there. Well, actually, I'll say you have Chiwetel Ejiofor plays Baron Mordo. I mean, in Doctor Strange 2. Did he actually play him in the first? Oh, he actually did this character in both Doctor Strange films. So I've already talked about this guy, actually. So then let's move on and talk about Spider-Man No Way Home. So first of all, we have the actor that played Norman Osborn first in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films and then in No Way Home. That actor is William Dafoe. So let's see what else William Dafoe has been in. Um, he's actually in Finding Nemo and John Wick, the first film, Aquaman, Poor Things. I'm not familiar with any of these other movies. Though actually, he played Jesus Christ in The Last Temptation of Christ that came out back in 1988. And then you have the actor that played Electro, first in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, then in Spider-Man No Way Home, Jamie Foxx. I know this guy was also in Soul, done by Pixar back in 2020. What else has Jamie Foxx done? Um, Not familiar with anything else he's been in. So then you have Tom Hardy, who technically played Venom in Spider Man No Way Home, but his character had almost no screen time, so it can be easy to forget that Venom was even in this movie because he only shows up in the post credits scene. Tom Hardy plays Venom in the first Venom movie and the sequel Let There Be Carnage. And then Tom Hardy was also in The Dark Knight Rises, where he played Bane. And also, he actually starred as Mad Max in Mad Max Fury Road that came out back in 2015. We're getting Furiosa and Mad Max saga this year, 9 years after the first Mad Max movie. Pretty crazy to think. Tom Hardy was actually in Star Trek Nemesis from back in 2002. I did not remember that at all. And then he was in The Revenant. And actually, aside from being in The Dark Knight Rises, he was in Inception and Dunkirk. So he's actually been in 3 different movies directed by Christopher Nolan. Interesting. And then you have Alfred Molina, who played Doc Ock first in Spider-Man 2, directed by Sam Raimi, and then he's in No Way Home. Alfred Molina is also in The Sorcerer's Apprentice. It came out back in 2012, was it? I don't remember when exactly that movie came out. But also, Alfred Molina has done voice work for Rango back in 2011, Monsters University, Ralph Breaks the Internet, and Frozen 2. Don't remember what characters he played in those movies. Let's see, Sorcerer's Apprentice came out back in 2010. And then you have Thomas Hayden Church, who played Sandman, first in Spider Man 3 and then in No Way Home. What else has he been in? He was Lyle Van de Groot in George of the Jungle from 1997, which is a spoof of Tarzan. Because I'm familiar with Tarzan, this movie is on my radar. And then he's actually Thomas Hayden Church is in Over the Hedge, along with Max from 2015 and the Hellboy remake. I'm not familiar with him from anything else. Then you have. Is there any other people to talk about from Spider-Man: No Way Home? I don't think there is. I mean, also you technically have Reese Ivins as Dr. Kirk Connors. This is a more minor role though, because in Spider-Man: No Way Home, Lizard doesn't say much, and he doesn't stand out, frankly, as much as the other returning villains in that movie. Actually, Reese Ivins played Xenophilius Lovegood in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1, which I did not remember at all. Then he was Grigory Rasputin in The King's Man from 2021. And then he plays Sir Otto Hightower in House of the Dragon, which is getting a season 2 this year. Aside from that, I'm not familiar with anything else he's done. There isn't anyone else I'd like to talk about from Spider-Man No Way Home. So let's talk about Black Panther Wakanda Forever. So first of all, you have the actor that played Namor in Black Panther 2. What's that guy's name? Tenoch Huerta. What else has he done? Um, mm,
Yeah, I don't think I've seen him in anything else. Um, yeah, I am not familiar with him. Um, anything else? All right. So then, what other new characters are there from Black Panther: Wakanda Forever? Ah, yeah, you have that girl, Ironheart. Dominique Thorne plays her. So let's see. Who else has she played? Um, she was in Judas and the Black Messiah in 2021. Aside from that, I don't know anything else she's been in. And then have oh, you have Richard Schiff, who plays the UN secretary, is it, in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever? Um, Actually, I remember now. I know him because he's in The Good Doctor as Dr. Aaron Glassman, who's the president of the hospital in San Jose, California. And then what? Let's see. What character did he play in Black Panther 2? The U.S. Secretary of State. Also, Richard Schiff was in Man of Steel as Emil Hamilton. I don't remember that character at all. And he was also in Doctor Dolittle, 1998 film, played Gene Reese. And he was in Deep Impact, Jurassic Park: The Lost World. And I'm not familiar with him from anything else. And then you have other characters, but not any major ones. So let's move on. Now talk about Ant-Man the Wasp: Quantumania. Actually, something I do remember from this one is Bill Murray showed up in Quantum Mania. He also is really well known for being in the Ghostbusters franchise. He's been in all the Ghostbusters movies except the 2016 film, which is in its own continuity. And also, Bill Murray was Baloo in the live action Jungle Book movie. Aside from that, I'm not sure what else he's been in. Let's look here. Oh yeah, Bill Murray was in Groundhog Day from 1993, and What About Bob that came out in 1991, and then Osmosis Jones came out back in 2001. And I'm not familiar with him from anything else. Also, you have Catherine Newton, who started playing Cassie Lane in Ant-Man the Wasp: Quantumania. She's also in she's in Pokemon Detective Pikachu that came out back in 2019. I haven't seen that film, but I definitely know the character of Pikachu, the Pokemon in general, because I used to play Smash Bros on the Wii and Nintendo Switch back when I was at SMSU. The game Smash Bros had some of the Pokemon in it, not all of them, but a few of them. I haven't seen her in anything else. Then you have Jonathan Majors, who famously was hired to play Kane in the MCU. He's hired to be the next big bad villain, the next Thanos. But then Ant-Man the Wasp: Quantumania came out, and a lot of people, myself included, it just felt like a movie that was entirely written and directed by committee, written and directed by the MCU Parliament, just filtered through a group of executives that were just trying to make a movie for everyone, to make it for the broadest possible audience. And so they just put out a film that's entirely generic. It's just like, okay, yeah, we're getting more MCU stuff we've seen before. And also just felt like a movie that had no bite or teeth to it because it's like they weren't willing to commit to anything, and so the movie ends in a way that's not satisfying, a way that makes you feel like, oh, okay, what happened in the movie doesn't really matter. I mean, who cares that all these people went down the quantum realm? Who cares that they ran into Kane? Because they just all got back with no consequences or repercussions. So, whatever. I don't care about Kane. Jonathan Majors, Was also in Devotion from 2022 and the third Creed movie that came out in 2023. Now, Jonathan Majors ended up being fired by Disney because of the charges of harassment and assault that were brought against him. He was found guilty, and so Disney is like, no, Jonathan Majors, you're out. We don't want anything to do with you anymore. And then who else is introduced Ant-Man and the Wasp? Quantumania. Um, Not really anyone else. I mean, other than Owen Wilson, but he only shows up in the post-credit scene of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. He's really introduced in the TV show Loki as Mobius M. Mobius. Then he was also in Marley and Me that came out quite a good amount of time ago, back in 2008. And also, Owen Wilson played Lightning McQueen in the Cars movies and played the titular character in Marmaduke 2010 and Reggie in the first in Free Birds came out back in 2013, which I actually haven't seen before, but I've watched movies that are similar to it. And then there's not anything else that I know Owen Wilson from, well, other than the Night of the Museum movies. But what character did he play in those movies? He played Jedediah actually in Night at the Museum. I haven't seen him in anything else. All right, so now let's talk about the Marvels, which actually is right now the only MCU film that I haven't seen. I had not seen Captain Marvel for a while. I wasn't really interested in it. Then I ended up seeing it with a friend, but I did not see the Marvels when it came out. I had no desire to see it in the theater because I was just like, okay, this doesn't seem very good. Sure, it's fun and entertaining, but it seems like the story's really messy. So, nah, I don't want to pay to see it. And then there's other things I'd rather watch than this movie. Though you have Iman Vellani, who plays Miss Marvel in The Marvels. Pretty clear to me she's one of the big highlights of that movie. And then, yeah, Iman Vellani right now hasn't really done anything other than Marvel. She's in the Disney Plus show Miss Marvel, as well as the movie The Marvels. And then technically she's in Marvel Studios Assembled, a fan's guide to Miss Marvel. She's going to be in Marvel Zombies, but right now she hasn't done anything outside of this one thing. And then you have Tiona Paris, who played Monica Rambeau at first in Captain Marvel. And that actually Tiona Paris started playing the character in Captain Marvel. She was just a little girl in that movie. And then we saw Monica Rambeau grown up in WandaVision, and then she's in the Marvels. Other than that, I haven't seen her in anything else. And then you have Zawe Ashton plays the villain in the Marvels, Darben. And ooh, man, I feel bad for Zawe Ashton because she was given such a disposable, bland, generic, forgettable Marvel villain to play in that movie. So there's no impact there at all. I haven't seen her in anything else. And then we have Park Seo Joon plays Prince Yan in the Marvels. And what else has this guy done? Yeah, I haven't seen him in anything else. And then yeah, Daniel Ings plays Tyrone, Ty apostrophe Rone. There's a space between those two. Daniel Iggs is also in other things, but I'm not familiar with any of them. Now let's move on, talk about Deadpool and Wolverine. So this is when two big names are coming into the MCU. Hugh Jackman, Ryan Reynolds. Hugh Jackman's a big name because he played Wolverine for like 10 years. Played him for a long time. He was in every single X-Men movie. except New Mutants, but that's not really an X-Men film. It's in that universe technically, but it's really just doing its own thing. Actually, was Wolverine in the first Deadpool movie? I don't know if he was, but Wolverine is in pretty much every X-Men movie. Aside from that, what else has Hugh Jackman done? He was in Les Miserables back in 2012, which I watched back when I was a college student at SMSU. And then he was in Flushed Away from DreamWorks, Happy Feet, and Rise of the Guardians. Came out back in 2012. Rise of the Guardians also put out by DreamWorks, whereas Happy Feet is put out by Warner Brothers Pictures, which has done several big franchises. I haven't seen him in anything else. But then you have Ryan Reynolds, who's really well known for being Deadpool. Also, Ryan Reynolds is in the movie Free Guy that came out back in 2021. And then he was in the Croods movies, actually, both the Croods that came out back in 2013 and Croods A New Age that came out in 2020. And then he was actually also in Pokemon Detective Pikachu back in 2019 and Green Lantern 2011. He actually played the titular character Green Lantern in that movie. Then he was in Blade Trinity, which is the only Blade film only one of those original free Blade movies I haven't seen right now. And then I'm not familiar with anything else he's done. And then you have Leslie Ugams, who played that older lady in the first two Deadpool movies. What's her name again? Actually, Leslie Ugams also was in the TV show Fallout, based on the video game of the same name. What else has she been in? Aside from being Blind Owl in the first two Deadpool movies, I'm not familiar with her from anything else. Then you have Emma Corrin, who played um, she's gonna be Cassandra Nova in Deadpool and Wolverine, and I'm not familiar with her from anything else. Then you have Morena Baccarin. Yeah, she plays the love interest in the first two Deadpool movies. What's name? Um, she plays Vanessa in Deadpool and Deadpool 2. And then I actually had completely forgotten. She's Dr. Leslie Tompkins in Gotham, a TV show that is about young Bruce Wayne. His parents die right at the beginning of Gotham, and then we see him start the journey of becoming Batman. But he's not at that point where he's actually in the suit driving around Gotham in the Batmobile or flying around in the Batplane. No, he's starting to get there. He's facing off against like early versions of his villains. I really enjoy Gotham. I watched that back when I lived in New York with my mom. We both really enjoyed it. And then I haven't seen Morena Baccarin from anything else. She's actually in Batman Bad Blood. She played Talia al Ghul. I haven't seen that Batman movie specifically. And then I'm not familiar with her from anything else. And then you have there are other people that are going to be in Deadpool and Wolverine. Um, you have Brianna Hildebrand, who played Negasonic Teenage Warhead in the first two Deadpool films, and looks like she's gonna be in Deadpool and Wolverine as well. And I haven't seen her in anything else. I mean, she's in the 2017 Exorcist show that I haven't seen, but I know that Exorcist is a famous horror film. Also, we have Matthew McFadden it looks like, aha. So Owen, it says here on Google that Owen Wilson is going to be Mobius and Mobius in Deadpool and Wolverine. But then it also says here that Matthew McFadden will also be Mobius and Mobius. So it looks like we'll be getting two different versions of Mobius. Okay, so let's see. What else has Matthew McFadden been in? I'm not familiar with him from anything else. All right, now, did I go over all the movies that are part of MCU Phase 4? I think I did. I just want to make sure. Um, no, actually, I didn't talk about Thor Love and Thunder. So, one thing that's really important to note here is that Russell Crowe enters into the MCU with Thor Love and Thunder. Russell Crowe's a fairly big name. He played Superman, Kal-El's father, Jor-El in Man of Steel. Then he was in Gladiator, The Next 3 Days. And I don't remember off the top of my head what else he's been in. But also Christian Bale, Batman from the Dark Knight trilogy, and John Connor from Terminator Salvation plays Gore the God Butcher in Thor Love and Thunder. Let's see. What else has... Russell Crowe was in the 2010 Robin Hood movie. Then he played Javert in Les Miserables. Noah in Noah 2014. And I'm not familiar with him from anything else. And then you have Jamie Alexander. Actually, didn't talk about her back when I was discussing the first two Thor movies. She returned for Thor Love and Thunder. And actually, she was in one episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as well. Let's see. What else has Jamie Alexander done? I'm not familiar with her from anything else. And then, it's not really anyone else new from Thor Love and Thunder. So, with that out of the way, I've now covered all of the MCU films. So, now I'm going to start talking about Star Wars. So, I talked already about a few actors from Star Wars because some of them have been in both Star Wars and Marvel. But for example, if we look at Rogue One, a Star Wars story, I've already talked about some of the people that are in this movie, but not all of them. Because, for example, Felicity Jones plays Jyn Erso in Rogue One. Let's see, what else has she done? She's in The Amazing Spider-Man 2 and A Monster Calls, which I'm a fan of. And I'm not familiar with her from anything else. And then you have Diego Luna, plays Cassian Andor first in Rogue One and then in the TV show Andor. And what else has... He was actually in Elysium that came out back in 2013, directed by Neil Blomkamp. And I haven't seen him in anything else. And then you have Donnie Yen, who played Chirrut Imwe in Rogue One, a Star Wars story. And then Donnie Yen is also in Mulan 2020 and then John Wick Chapter 4. And he has been in other things, not anything that I'm familiar with. Then you have... Peter Cushing was actually dead by the time Rogue One came out because he died back in 1994. His character Tarkin was brought back in Rogue One through complex facial reconstruction, and then a different actor technically played Tarkin in Rogue One. The filmmakers look back at Peter Cushing's performance in A New Hope for Tarkin's scenes in Rogue One. Let's see. What else did Peter Cushing do? He played Baron Frankenstein in 6 of the 7 Frankenstein films from Hammer Studio. Then played Dr. Van Helsing in 5 Dracula movies. It was also in The Abominable Snowman, 1957, and also in The Mummy, 1959. Both of these are British films. And then I'm not familiar with him from anything else. Then you have Alan Tudyk, who actually played Sonny in the movie I, Robot, is also K2SO in Rogue One. And then he's in Dodgeball, a true underdog story for 2004. And then he was in Transformers Dark of the Moon, and 42 actually. What did he do in 42? He played Ben Chapman in that movie. I'm a fan of 42. And Chadwick Boseman is actually in there. And Harrison Ford is too. And then what character did he play in Transformers Dark of the Moon? That's interesting. Um Played Dutch Gerhardt in a movie. I'm not. Oh, looks like Alan Tudyk has done a lot of Diz. So he actually voiced the Joker and Clayface in the series Harley Quinn, which premiered November 2019. Then voices Optimus Prime in Transformers Earthspark. And he's also in Young Justice that started back in 2010. That's about the DC characters. I'm not familiar with Alan Tudyk. Oh, actually, he's he's been in several Disney films. Actually, a lot of them. He was Alistair Cray in Big Hero 6, Duke Weaselton in Zootopia, Hell High Villager in Moana, pretty small role there. He was technically in Deadpool 2, then he was Iago in live action Aladdin, Knows More in Ralph Breaks the Internet. I don't remember that character. In Frozen 2, Raya and the Last Dragon, Encanto, Strange World, Peter Pan and Wendy, Wish. Wow, he's done the first Frozen movie, Ice Age Continental Drift, Alvin and the Chipmunks Shipwrecked, Ice Age The Meltdown, the first Ice Age movie. Wow, Alan Tudyk's been in a lot of movies. I did not remember that at all. And then in Rogue One, I already talked about Forrest Whitaker. You have Carrie Fisher, who's famous for being Princess Leia in Star Wars. She tragically died back in December 2016, which really changed things for The Rise of Skywalker. What else did Carrie Fisher do? Um, hasn't been in anything. She hasn't been in anything else that I've seen before. And then you have Riz Ahmed, who played Bodhi Rook in Rogue One. Let's see, what else What else has he done? He was in Jason Bourne back in 2016. Played Carlton Drake in Venom 2018. And then he has not been in anything else that I'm familiar with. And then you have, let's see, who's the person that voiced Baze Malbus in Rogue One, a Star Wars story? Let's see here. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out who plays this one character. I thought it would be easy to figure it out, but it's proving actually to be difficult. Jian Wen plays Baze Malbus in Rogue One. And what else has he done? Nothing else that I'm familiar with. Then there's not any other major new characters that are introduced in Rogue One Star Wars story. Since the character of Darth Vader appears in this film, however, we can talk about James Earl Jones, who's a pretty big actor since he's Mufasa in The Lion King, Darth Vader, and he was in Sandlot. Aside from these three roles, I'm not sure what else he's done. Um, he's in Conan the Barbarian, came out back in 1982. I haven't seen that movie. It stars Arnold Schwarzenegger as well as James Earl Jones. And then we can also talk about some characters that were in previous Star Wars movies that returned for Rogue One. Like you have Genevieve O'Reilly, who is well known for being Mon Mothma in Star Wars. At first, she literally was only in deleted scenes from Star Wars Revenge of the Sith, but then she actually appeared in Rogue One, Andor, and Ahsoka, and then in the animated show Rebels. And I'm well, she also actually was in The Legend of Tarzan 2016, and she was not in anything else that I'm familiar with. Then you have Jimmy Smits, who plays Bail Organa in Star Wars. Aside from that, I'm not familiar with anything else that he was in the movie called In the Heights that came out back in 2021. That's a musical that I actually saw in theaters. I really enjoyed it. Then you've Anthony Daniels, really well known for being C-3PO in Star Wars. He's been in every Star Wars movie except Solo. What else? Anthony Daniels is actually Legolas in the Ralph Bakshi animated Lord of the Rings movie from 1978. And I'm not familiar with him from. Actually, he technically is in Ralph Breaks the Internet, but I think he only has a cameo. And then there's not anyone else I'd like to talk about from Rogue One. So now let's start talking about the sequel trilogy. I've already talked about a few of the people that are in the sequel trilogy, like Oscar Isaacs, Andy Serkis. But then the actor that played Finn in the sequel trilogy is named, let's see here, John Boyega. Man, John Boyega was just wasted in those movies. Because Finn could have been such an interesting character. Just imagine for a second if the movies had actually taken the time to explore the fact that this guy was raised in a very cold, rigid military environment. And so he could have started off as a more robotic, frankly. He could have started off not showing as much emotion, which would make sense given his upbringing. And then gradually, as he starts to form real connections with other people, he warms up and we see more emotion come out of him. He could have been that one guy who's saying to everyone else, we need to extend the chance for other stormtroopers to turn away from the First Order. I was able to leave them. We need to give other stormtroopers a chance because they are victims in all this. They did not choose this life, it was chosen for them. But all that potential was sadly wasted by the sequel trilogy. John Boyega has also been in Pacific Rim Uprising, I think. Actually, I don't know if he was, to be honest. I haven't seen him in anything else. And then you have the actress who plays Rey, Daisy Ridley, in the Star Wars sequel trilogy. What else has she done? I haven't seen her in anything else. And then you have Adam Driver, who played Kylo Ren in the sequel trilogy. He's also in House of Gucci. And what else has he done? He had a supporting role in Lincoln, and he was in Not anything else that I've seen. Then we have Mark Hamill. I already talked about Carrie Fisher, but we'll talk about Mark Hamill now. He's really well known for being Luke Skywalker in Star Wars. Aside from that, he was in he played Hobgoblin in Spider-Man the Animated Series from 1995 to 1998. Firelord Ozai in Avatar: The Last Airbender, the Nickelodeon show. Then the other big thing Mark Hamill is really known for is being Joker in Batman the Animated Series, the new Batman Adventures, Batman Beyond Return of the Joker, Batman Mask of the Phantasm, that whole continuity. Then Mark Hamill actually he was briefly in Kingsman: The Secret Service right at the beginning of that movie. And aside from that, I haven't seen anything else that he's been in. And then we now talk about Harrison Ford. This guy is a big name. He's older now, but this guy is famous for being both Han Solo and Indiana Jones. Aside from that, he was also Decker in Blade Runner. He's in the movie Ender's Game, Air Force One, and then um, he's in 42, as well as Cowboys and Aliens 2011. And then he's actually in 1923. That is a prequel to the TV show Yellowstone, which I am currently watching. I'm not familiar with Harrison Ford from anything else. And then you have Gwendolyn Christie, who is in Game of Thrones. She's unfortunately Captain Phasma in the Star Wars sequel trilogy. Man, I feel bad for Gwendolyn Christie because she was given so little to work with. Captain Phasma is such a nothing character that just didn't end up mattering in the slightest. She's just used as the butt end of a joke in The Force Awakens, then comes back for only one scene in The Last Jedi, and then it's like, oh, okay, she's just gone now. Okay, wow, that was super underwhelming. It just sucks because Gwendolyn Christie showed through Game of Thrones that she absolutely is a talented actress, but all her talent was just wasted in the Star Wars sequel trilogy. And then, Gwendolyn Christie has actually been in both The Sandman and Wednesday on Netflix. I did not remember she's in both series. I've watched The Sandman before. I'm a big fan of that show. Haven't specifically watched Wednesday yet. It's definitely on my radar. I plan to watch it at some point. I planning on getting caught up on Addams Family as a whole, the franchise. Gwendolyn Christie was Brienne of Tarth in Game of Thrones. And then aside from all these movies and shows, I'm not familiar with her from anything else. And then I already talked about Lupita Nyong'o. Then you have Max von Sydow. It's funny because you would absolutely be forgiven for forgetting that Max von Sydow was in the sequel trilogy at all because his character has so little screen time. Right at the beginning of The Force Awakens, the first scene where Poe is in this hut with an old man that gives him a map and it says, "This will begin to make things right." And then Kylo Ren shows up. There's a few lines exchanged between the two of them, but then Kylo Ren kills this old man. That right there is Max von Sydow, who's actually a fairly big actor. Because for one, he's famous for being in The Exorcist. He plays the older, more seasoned, experienced priest, Father Merrin. As soon as he shows up, you just get a feeling of authority from him, whereas Father Karras is the younger priest that's very much struggling with things. Funny thing is that Max von Sydow's character in the sequel trilogy in The Force Awakens itself is unnamed. You only find out his name if you look at the Force Awakens visual guide or you look at the Wikipedia page, the Star Wars wiki page actually. That's what I meant to say for that movie. Aside from being in The Exorcist, he actually was Jesus Christ in The Greatest Story Ever Told that came out back in 1965. And then He was also in Never Say Never Again back in 1983, one of the James Bond films. Then he has a supporting role actually in Dune 1984. He's in Minority Report from 2002, directed by Steven Spielberg. Shutter Island 2010, Robin Hood 2010 actually. Then he played the Three-Eyed Raven in Game of Thrones. Once again, it can be easy to forget that Max von Sydow is in Game of Thrones because Three-Eyed Raven doesn't really talk as much as far as I can remember. And actually, what I was trying to say earlier is that if you look at the Wikipedia page for Max von Sydow's character in The Force Awakens, then you find out more about him, but there's not much to him at all in that movie. I don't know Max von Sydow from anything else. Then you have Domhnall Gleeson, who played General Hux in the Star Wars sequel trilogy. Aside from that, what else he done? He actually was Bill Weasley in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 and 2. And then he was Captain Andrew Henry in The Revenant. And then he was Caleb Smith in Ex Machina. Not a movie that I've seen, but it's on my radar. It's directed by Alex Garland, the same guy who just put out Civil War not very long ago. And then I'm not familiar with Domhnall Gleeson from anything else. You also have Peter Mayhew, who's really well known for being Chewbacca in Star Wars. And let's see, what else has he done? Um, he hasn't really done much, frankly, other than being in Star Wars. I mean, he was on The Muppet Show back in 1980, and yeah, I'm not familiar with any of these other TV shows that he's been in. And then you don't really have anyone else major from Star Wars The Force Awakens. So then we look at The Last Jedi. I've already talked about Benicio del Toro, but then there's the actress that plays Rose Tico and Holdo in that movie. Actually, Laura Dern is the name of the actress that played Holdo in The Last Jedi. And man, I think that Holdo's character was really misused in that movie. You have this conflict between Poe and Holdo that I've always felt, ooh, this comes off as forced. It's like the filmmakers want everyone to fail, so we just got to have these two characters butt heads of each other, but doesn't feel natural at all. What else has Laura Dern done? She's actually in Jurassic Park. Oh, she's Ellie Sattler in the first two, in Jurassic Park 3, and Jurassic World Dominion. And then she is in other things that I'm not familiar with. You also have Kelly Marie Tran, who played Rose Tico in The Last Jedi, then for just a little bit in Rise of Skywalker. She was Princess Rhea in Rhea and the Last Dragon, and Dawn Betterman in The Croods: A New Age. And I'm not familiar with her from anything else. And aside from that, there's not any other major new characters that we get introduced to in The Last Jedi. So let's move on to The Rise of Skywalker. Thus, we can now talk about Ian McDiarmid, who does a great job of playing Palpatine. But I think bringing Palpatine back in Rise of Skywalker was a big mistake, because to me, it's so blatantly obvious that this was not the plan from the beginning. J.J. Abrams, you can say that you always plan to bring Palpatine back as much as you want, but I don't buy that, because there's no setup or foreshadowing for Palpatine coming back in The Force Awakens whatsoever. Instead, it comes off like J.J. Abrams got mad at what Ryan did in The Last Jedi by killing off Snoke. So he's just like, oh no, Ryan killed off Snoke. Who's going to be the big bad guy in The Rise of Skywalker? Can't be Kylo. He's already lost to Rey twice, so he's not very threatening. Oh, let's just bring back Palpatine out of nowhere. How did he come back? Well, whatever. Who cares? Let's just bring him back. No, it actually does matter. Ian McDiarmid also played. Let's see. I'm not sure what else he's done. He's in The Lost City of Z that came out back in 2016. I'm a fan of this movie. And then he's in Sleepy Hollow, 1999, directed by Tim Burton. Aside from that, I'm not familiar with him from anything else. Then you have Richard E. Grant, who played that intimidating First Order officer Pride in The Rise of Skywalker. And I'm not sure what else he's been in. Um, he's in Bram Stoker's Dracula from 1992, and then he was in Game of Thrones actually, but I don't remember what character he played in that show. Let's see here. Um, oh, actually, forgot Richard E. Grant was in Argyle, played Fowler in that movie. I don't remember that character. Let's see. Okay, now I'm on the television part of the Wikipedia page. Actually, Richard E. Grant was Bob Cratchit back in the 1999 Christmas Carol television movie. And then he was, um, okay, he played Izembaro in 3 episodes of Game of Thrones. Yeah, that's why I don't remember him. It's not like he had a big role in that show. Then you have Kerry Russell, who played who played Zori Bliss in The Rise of Skywalker. What else has Kerry Russell done? She's in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes 2014, and then Honey, I Blew Up the Kid, one of the sequels to Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. And she's in the third Mission Impossible movie from 2006, and I'm not familiar with her from anything else. What character did she play in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes? Um, she played Ellie, the wife to Jason Clarke's character Malcolm, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. And then you have Billy D. Williams came back to play Lando Calrissian in Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker after being Lando Calrissian in the original Star Wars trilogy. Here's something that's really easy to forget. Billy D. Williams is technically in the 1989 Batman movie directed by Tim Burton. He plays Harvey Dent there, but Harvey Dent has so little screen time in that Batman movie. It's like, oh yeah, Harvey Dent is actually in that movie. And Billy D. Williams is actually in the Lego Batman movie for 2017, and I'm not familiar with anything else that he's been in. And then you have the actress that played Janna in The Rise of Skywalker. What is her name? Um, Naomi Aki. What else has she done? Um, she played Whitney Houston in the biopic Whitney Houston, I Want to Dance with Somebody. I'm not I'm not familiar with anything else that she's been in. And then you have any other new characters to talk about from the Rise of Skywalker? No, not any other major ones. And then you have Solo, a Star Wars story. First of all, Emilia Clarke is actually in this movie. So this means Emilia Clarke is another one of these people that has been in both Marvel and Star Wars because she was in the Disney Plus show Secret Invasion, and then she's also in Solo, a Star Wars story, and she was in Game of Thrones. And then you have Donald Glover from who was in Spider-Man: Homecoming for one scene, and then in Spider-Man: Across the Spider-Verse. You also have Alden Ehrenreich, played Han Solo in Solo: A Star Wars Story, and he's also in um, he has a supporting role actually in Oppenheimer, but I'm not familiar with Alden Ehrenreich from anything else. Then you have Woody Harrelson, who was actually in War of the Planet of the Apes, and he was also in aside from War of the Planet of the Apes and Solo: A Star Wars Story, I'm not familiar with Woody Harrelson from anywhere else. And then that movie also have Phoebe Waller Bridge plays L337 in Solo. Oh yeah, she was in Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal. No, Indiana Jones and Dial of Destiny. Actually, she played that lady who was a goddaughter to Indiana Jones, and then she's not been in anything else that I'm familiar with. And then you have actually Paul Bettany is in Solo, which means he also has actually been in both Marvel and Star Wars because he was, as I talked about, Jarvis and Vision in the MCU, but then he was also in Solo Star Wars story. And then you have tech, technically of Warwick Davis, who is who's R2D2 in Star Wars. It can be easy to forget that's him because his character R2 doesn't talk at all; he just makes sounds. Warwick Davis played the title character in the 1988 Willow movie, and then he was actually Professor Phileas Flitwick and Griphook in the Harry Potter film series. And then I'm not familiar with anything else he's been in. Aside from that, it's not it's not many other characters to talk about. I mean, you have Linda Hunt plays Lady Proxima in Solo Star Wars story. She's in Pocahontas 1995 and Pocahontas 2 Journey to a New World, due 1984. And aside from that, not familiar with her from anything else. And you have Erin Kellyman plays that. Let's she is in Falcon and the Winter Soldier and Willow 2022, and then is in Green Knight actually for 2021 as well. In Solo, what character did she play? Emphas Nest. And then aside from that, there's not any other people I'd like to talk about from Solo: A Star Wars Story. So now let's talk about the Reese talk actually about Harry Potter now. So first of all, let's look at the people that played the three main characters in Harry Potter. Well, Harry Potter himself, Ron Weasley, and Hermione Granger. First of all, you have Daniel Radcliffe, who's really well known for playing Harry Potter in all those movies. Aside from that, what else has he done? Um, he's not been in anything else that I'm familiar with. And then you have Rupert Grint, who played Ron Weasley in all the Harry Potter movies, and I'm not sure what else he's done. Hasn't been in anything else that I'm familiar with. Then you have Emma Watson, played Hermione Granger in all the Harry Potter movies. Actually, I remember she was in the live action Beauty and the Beast movie as Belle. And then I'm not sure what else she's done. Um, Not familiar with her from anything else. Then you have Maggie Smith, who played Professor Minerva McGonagall in Harry Potter. She's also in the movie Sister Act as the head nun, and I'm not sure what else she's done. Um, she was actually in Hook for 1991, The Secret Garden for 1993, and I'm not familiar with her from anything else. Then you have Alan Rickman, who played Severus Snape in the Harry Potter movies and did a great job at it. And then I'm not sure what else he's done. He was actually Hans Gruber in Die Hard, and then he was Sheriff of Nottingham in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, 1991. And then he was in the 2010 Alice in Wonderland movie and its 2016 sequel. Familiar with those films because I know Alice in Wonderland. I've seen the original Disney animated Alice in Wonderland, but not the film directed by Tim Burton. And then I'm not familiar with Alan Rickman from anything else. You also have Michael Gambon, who played Dumbledore in 6 out of 8 of the Harry Potter movies. I'm not sure what else he's done. He was in Amazing Grace from 2006, and I'm not familiar with him from anything else. Then you have Richard Harris, who was Dumbledore in the first two Harry Potter movies. He was in Gladiator from 2000, The Count of Monte Cristo from 2002, and then he portrayed King Arthur actually in the 1967 movie Camelot. Aside from that, I'm not familiar with him from anything else. And then you have the actor who played Gilderoy Lockhart in Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. What's that guy's name? I don't remember. Um, Kenneth, Kenneth Branagh, who is well known as a director because he did the first four movie along with these murder mysteries like Haunting in Venice, Murder on the Orient Express, Death on the Nile. He did Hamlet movie back in 1996, but he also has been in some movies as well. Aside from being Gilderoy Lockhart, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, he was in Mary Shelley. Was in Actually, he both directed Murder on the Orient Express, Death on the Nile, and Haunting in Venice. He also starred in those movies as Hercule Poirot. Then he was in The Road to El Dorado back in 2000. That was put out by DreamWorks. And then he actually has had supporting roles in Dunkirk, Tenet, and Oppenheimer. I did not remember that he's acted in 3 Christopher Nolan movies. That's interesting. You also have the actor that played Dobby, Toby Jones, actually, yeah. Then you have Tom Felton, who started playing Draco Malfoy in the first Harry Potter movie. He was Louis T. Leonowens in Anna and the King, and then he was in Rise of the Planet of the Apes. He plays that character that's just an absolute jerk for no reason. Pretty one-dimensional character. And then you have Fiona Shaw started playing Petunia Evans in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Fiona Shaw was actually in Andor as Marva Andor, Cassian's mother. And then she is also in not anything else that I'm familiar with. But then you have Jason Isaacs, who actually played Captain Hook in the movie Hook from 2003, and he played Lucius Malfoy in the Harry Potter movies. Jason Isaacs was also in Black Hawk Down from 2001, and then he hasn't been in anything else that I'm familiar with. But then you have Bonnie Wright, who started playing Ginny Weasley in Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, and then she hasn't been in anything else that I'm familiar with. And then we have it's not any other major new characters to talk about other than Christian Coulson actually plays Tom Marvolo Riddle in Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Aside from that, hasn't been in anything else that I'm familiar with. That's going to cover it though for Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. But for now, I'm actually going to end the stream, but I'll be coming back to it later. So let's say goodbye for now. But I enjoy talking about all these different people. There's still quite a good amount of them I haven't talked about yet, actually, though I've made a good amount of progress. See you all later.